to make after Fight Night, Oklahoma City, Dricus du Plessis versus Kamaru Usman, in which I will be breaking down which fights should be made next for the most important winners and losers of this fight night. Going to the winner of the main event to start the video, Dricus du Plessis. The most obvious fight to make for him is the trilogy versus Sean Strickland. Obviously, I believe Imavov should get the title shot before DDP, but I don't think there's really much more DDP has to do before getting the title shot, especially with the fact that he already has 2 wins over Sean Strickland. And I know as for promoting a fight like that, it's going to be a little hard when a guy already has 2 wins, but you can kind of promote the fight as a lot of people think Sean won the first fight and promote it as it's 1-1, and whoever wins the third fight owns the trilogy. But I mean, there's just nothing else you can do. I've seen people match up DDP with Brendan Allen, but I don't think Brendan Allen deserves a title elimination fight after going life and death with Edmund Shabazian. So I just think this is the only fight you can do after DDP's win on this fight night. On to the loser of the main event, Kamaru Usman. I believe he will go down to welterweight after this unsuccessful fight at middleweight, and I think the only option if he goes down to welterweight is him versus Bilal. Remember the name Muhammad. Him and Bilal obviously have some previous beef. Supposedly Bilal went on Kamaru Usman and Henry Cejudo's podcast, and supposedly he made Kamaru cry and then he slapped him. That's what Bilal says, at least. But I just think this fight is a pretty fair fight. They're both older guys, wrestlers, both coming off losses, both former champions, and they have beef. So it'd be even if the fight was a little boring, at least the build-up would be pretty fun, you know. Bilal, even though he's kind of annoying, does have pretty good trash talk at times, and Usman would be trying to be nonchalant and trying to sun him, so it would be pretty entertaining at a press conference to have. You know, we have the Nigerian Nightmare versus the Palestinian Nightmare, which I believe is the name of a couple missiles that Israel owns right now. But okay, going on to the winner of the co-main event, Christian Leroy Duncan. After this fight, he should be the 11th ranked contender, moving up over Jared Cannonier. And with Israel Adesanya being on the 3 or 4 fight skid he's on now, he's fallen down to number 8. So I don't think that's a crazy fight to make. It's a striker for Izzy. I mean, Joe Pyfer was kind of a striker, but also a guy who's willing to shoot takedowns and finish the fight by shooting a takedown and via ground and pound. So this would be a little bit more favorable for Izzy, I believe, and not a guy. And Joe Pyfer is super powerful. Christian Leroy Duncan couldn't even knock out, 42-year-old Jared Cannonier. So, and to be honest, maybe Izzy could even grapple in this matchup like we saw him do in the Pereira fights. But I don't really know what else you do with Izzy at this point. You have to since he doesn't want to retire, you have to offer him a lower guy in the rankings. And to be honest, I was hoping they'd make Izzy versus Yusri Belegri, which would be an unranked guy and would still be a hard fight, but Yusri is booked versus Kelvin Gastelum, I believe, on the Noche card. So I think this is the best thing you do. And I mean, Christian Leroy Duncan should win this at this point in time, but no matter what, it'll be a pretty fun striking matchup. So I think this is the next fight you make. On to the loser of the co-main event, Jared Cannonier. I think you do him versus Bo Nickel. I mean, Jared Cannonier, I've seen people put him versus Sharmagamativ, but I think you want to put him against strikers, because Jared Cannonier against a wild striker like that, like we saw versus CLD, he's just going to try to be very boring and hold him against the cage, and I don't really want to see that. Whereas somebody like Bo Nickel, if he tries to initiate any sort of grappling form against him, I just don't think, it's not gonna go well for him. It's gonna be bad, my guy. So it's not a huge step up for Bo Nickel. Only should be about one ranking ahead of him. But we got to build up Bo Nickel slowly after he only had a loss not that long ago. He's fought 2 unranked guys in a row, so this would be his first ranked guy and kind of a gatekeeper in Jared Cannonier. So I think this would be a good fight to make next. On to the next fight. Chase Hooper versus Grant Dawson. I'm going to be honest, this is kind of a big step up for Chase Hooper. Coming off 2 knockout losses in a row just to get his first win and get a top 15 ranked guy. I know maybe it's a little unfair, but I'm just thinking about this fight. Both amazing grapplers, both guys not great on the feet, and both guys who have horrible chins. So I think this would be a pretty good fight, and I just think the scrambles would be insane. And now, come to think of it, a better opponent would probably be Beneil Dariush, since he's unranked, and both those things are kind of true. No chins. I mean, Beneil's good on the feet, but also crazy scrambles. But this is a fight I went with, so I can't go back now. But maybe Beneil Dariush as well. I think both of those would be awesome fights. That would probably get fight of the night just for the insane jiu-jitsu scrambles we'd see in them. On to the next fight, which is Jose Miguel Delgado versus Yusuf Zalal. At first, I wanted to put Delgado versus Tommy McMillan, because McMillan called out a Mexican on the the Noche card, but I mean, that would only be McMillan's 3rd fight, and I don't think a ranked opponent would be fair. And I think this matchup makes sense rankings-wise. Delgado's number 15 in the rankings right now. At least I've been going off the Meta AI rankings for this video. And, I mean, he should get bumped up a spot because Malik Riazel Costa will be brought out of the rankings because he's moving up to lightweight. So he'll probably end up as number 14 or 13 in the rankings on Tuesday. And Yusuf Zalal right now sits at number 8 in the rankings, and he's coming off a loss. So he's going to have to fight down. And I think this would be a good fight. Yusuf Zalal would probably try to grapple Delgado, and Delgado would try to knock him out. So I think it'd be a fun fight. On to the next fight of the night, which is Verna Jandaroma versus Fatima Klein. I mean, Fatima Klein just looked really good in her fight against Ricci. Pretty much dominated every aspect of the fight. And to be honest, looked like she could be a future champion at strawweight in the UFC. So, and she's number 14 right now. Ricci's number 7. She should be moving up quite a bit. And I think she could be a future champion, so why not test it? Give her Verna Jandarova, who's number 2 in the rankings, coming off a loss to the champion. Coming off a win against Ricci, but not long before that, coming off a loss to the champion. And, let's just see if Fatima Klein really is up with the big dogs. And let's see if we can get this Ugo out of the rankings. So, on to the next fight, which is Tabitha Ricci versus Jacqueline Amorim. Obviously Tabitha Ricci is going to be falling down in the rankings a little bit after her loss. And this might be 2 or 3 losses, or at least 2 losses in a row for her right now. So she's going to have to be looking down in the rankings. And Jacqueline Amorim sits at the number 13 spot, and I think this would be a very interesting fight. Jacqueline Amorim just has insane jiu-jitsu. I believe she's a jiu-jitsu world champion or something like that. And we saw Ricci implement a very heavy grappling game plan in her fight. Didn't really work, but we've also seen Amorim gas out before. She fought Sam Hughes and she dominated her for the first round, and then after she couldn't finish her, just kind of gave up. So I'm wondering if we could see Ricci kind of just go forward, shoot takedowns, try to tire her out, slug her out, and maybe win a 29-28 decision or something like that via Amorim getting tired and losing the last two. Or we just go see Amorim be slick with her jiu-jitsu and submit her in the first round. So I think this would be a good matchup to next. On to the next fight I'm going to make, which is this is a banger. And I know bangers. So Tommy McMillan versus Larry Ann Douglas. I couldn't find Tommy McMillan, a Mexican, for the Noche card, but I found the next best thing, a Brazilian. I kind of wanted to give Tommy McMillan a ranked featherweight, and the two Mexicans were Delgado, which I think he has to move up, and Steve Garcia, who's just coming off a knockout, so that'd be too soon, but a Brazilian is pretty close. And also, I believe Larry Ann Douglas called him out on Twitter, so Tommy McMillan feels like he gets disrespected and starts hating dudes and talking trash. So maybe we'll see if he'll talk some trash about Douglas. And to be honest, the main reason I put this fight together is just I think this would just be an absolute banger, a barn burner, a war, whatever you want to call it, whatever synonym you want to use for an awesome fight. I mean, McMillan's like the third Diaz brother now with his cardio and just walking forward and throwing punches. And also, he's like a Diaz brother in the way where he has amazing grappling, but he just doesn't really decide to use it to be more entertaining. And this would be a good matchup because I could see McMillan walking forward against like he did against Montez, and where Montez was catching him with slick jabs and boxing and hurting him and dropping him, but not really being able to follow up on it because McMillan would just get up and start pressuring him again. Where maybe Larry Douglas would be able to really hurt him with the jab, because we saw in his last fight against Julian Erosa, he was just murdering him with the jab, man. He would hit him with the jab and Erosa would drop like he'd never been hit by a punch before, man. So I wonder if we could see that, or maybe in that fight, Douglas was pressuring Erosa back. Maybe in a fight where he's not pressuring and he's getting pressured, maybe his jab doesn't work as good. Maybe he's not as powerful on the back foot. And I just think this would be a sick fight in general. So I say if Douglas wants it on the Mexico card, the Noche card, and McMillan wants it, why not? Let's do it, man. On to the next fight. John Paul Labosniani versus Kevin Holland. And I don't know why this picture is so blurry and scuffed and why this one's so good. I have no clue, but I mean, Kevin Holland was actually supposed to fight Jacoby Smith on the Oklahoma City card. He said he got injured. I don't know what with. On his Instagram, he said it was a vaginal tear, so maybe something to the labia or something of that degree. Who knows? But so he's going to need some time out, obviously, maybe like a month or two. And John Paul, JPL, fought in a pretty good scrap, so he's going to need some time off. And I just think their timing will probably end up pretty well. I mean, John Paul seems to, in the UFC, he's fought about every 4 months or so. I mean, the Phil Rowe fight wasn't completely dominant. He took some damage, not a lot, and then he came back 4 months, so I think we'll see him at the end of the year. And I know people are probably saying, oh, but Kevin Holland's injured. He might not even make it to the end of the year. He might have to wait till early next year. And I'm like, dude, Kevin Holland is the most active fighter in the UFC. Even if he does have a torn labia or whatever, he'll be fine. He'll make it before the end of the year. And I think the best fight would be John Paul and Bosniani. John Paul showed some good offensive wrestling against Ko And obviously, Kevin Holland's weak spot is his defensive wrestling, but also John Paul showed some good submission skills, and Kevin Holland, even with weak wrestling, has very good jiu-jitsu and scrambles, so that could be interesting. And I wonder how this fight would play out on the feet. John Paul, a lot of head kicks and stuff like that. I mean, Kevin Holland got caught with a bunch of head kicks against Wonderboy, but Wonderboy is also a karate genius, so I don't know. I think this would be an interesting fight, and I think it makes sense due to Holland's was supposed to be on this card and should be back before, like, at the end of the year, and I think JPL will be on that same sort of timeline, so I think you should make this fight. And I don't think I put it in here, but I would say I didn't mention what Austin Bashi's next fight or Alberto Montez's next fight should be. So I'd say just match them up against each other. But they both took quite a bit of damage. I think Alberto Montez took a lot of damage. He looks like Topuria, and he took a Topuria level amount of damage. So he might have to be out for a while. I think Bashi will be out for a while, and he's not all that active anyways. So I think that'd be a good fight. Bashi testing his wrestling against somebody with really good front chokes, seeing how that plays out with the wrestling. And also, we need to see Bashi go against another good, slick striker, because he did not fare well against Jose Miguel Delgado. So, yeah, these are all the fights I believe should be made after UFC Fight Night, Oklahoma City, Dricus du Plessis versus Kamaru Usman. Like, comment, and subscribe.